Welcome back, children. So coming to today's class on collisions, okay, it's a chapter review of collisions for NEET or JEE mains. So before you start solving numericals related to collisions, okay, so just we are going to revise what are the main formulas that you have to recollect, okay, before starting the applications. So coming to this topic of collisions, tell me, how do we define collision? Okay, how do we define collision? It is an interaction between particles such that momentum of at least one particle is going to change. Again, I repeat the definition. How do we define collision? It's an interaction between particles such that momentum of at least one particle has to undergo a change. So even if one particle is undergoing a change in momentum, we say that there is a collision taking place. And it is not necessary that there should be a contact between the bodies for a collision to occur. Okay, in general, day-to-day life, between gas molecules, there is a contact. Between collision of a scooter and a lorry, there is a collision. That means there is a contact. But it is not a compulsion. Say you have two charged particles. When you bring this charged particle close to the other positive charge, okay, we know the momentum of this charge is going to change. So this is also an example of collision. So in the sense, you just remember that during collision, it is not necessary that there should be a contact between one body and another. Then coming to the different types of collisions. Okay, hope you remember. To make it convenient to study, we are classifying the collisions into two types. One is elastic collision. Another is inelastic collision. Okay, when do you call the collision as elastic or perfectly elastic? A collision is said to be perfectly elastic if momentum is conserved. The total momentum before collision should be equal to total momentum after collision. The second condition is kinetic energy is also conserved for elastic collision. The forces acting on the objects are only conservative forces. If there are any forces acting, then forces will be conservative. Only conservative forces can produce this elastic collision. And here, if you remember, the coefficient of restitution. Okay, how do we define coefficient of restitution? Relative velocity of separation by relative velocity of approach along the common normal or along the line of impact. So when you are defining the coefficient of restitution, hope you remember we have defined it as relative velocity of separation after collision by relative velocity of approach before collision. So this value is equal to 1 in case of elastic collision. That means with whatever relative velocity the objects are approaching for collision, after collision they get separated with the same relative velocity. So the coefficient of restitution is equal to 1 for elastic collision. Whereas coming to inelastic collision, tell me, when do you call the collision as inelastic? It is said to be inelastic if momentum is conserved. Okay, total momentum before collision should be equal to total momentum after collision. But kinetic energy is not conserved. And remember, in both the cases, total energy is always conserved. Okay, here also total energy is conserved. Kinetic may not be conserved. In the sense, a part of the kinetic energy may be converted into some other form of energy, maybe sound or heat or whatever it is. In some cases, the complete kinetic energy is converted into some other form. Then the two objects will come to rest after collision. So then coming to the coefficient of restitution, so there are some non-conservative forces acting on it. Okay, here only conservative forces act. If there is dissipation of energy, then there is a non-conservative force involved in the collision. Then coming to the coefficient of restitution, if the collision is perfectly inelastic, then the value of E is equal to 0. Otherwise, it lies between 0 and 1. I repeat, in general, for inelastic, it lies between 0 and 1. But if the collision is perfectly inelastic, when do you call it as perfectly inelastic? It's a special case of inelastic collision in which after colliding, the two objects will stick together. Okay, if I take this as M1, U1, M2 U2. I took the example of one dimensional here. After collision, they move as a single unit. They move with one common velocity. So if they stick together after collision and move as a single object, then we call such a collision as what type of collision? It is called as a perfectly inelastic collision. So inelastic, restitution lies between 0 and 1. And for perfectly inelastic, the value of E will be equal to 0. So this is what you need to remember, okay, when you are studying about collisions. And one more point regarding elastic collision, there is no change in size and shape of the body. Say the two colliding bodies are spherical. So during the impact, okay, when they are coming in contact, there may be a small deformation. So during this deformation, energy is stored in the form of potential energy. Again, it is converted into kinetic. Again, they come back to their original shape and size. So there is no change in shape and size before and after collision. But during the collision, there may be some small deformation for a small interval of time, okay, during the time of impact. Whereas in inelastic collision, it is not necessary that they should have the same shape and size. After collision, they may be completely deformed, or there may be deformation in one body but not the other. So when there is a deformation occurring, it's an example for inelastic collision. If there is no deformation, then it is an example for elastic collision. But here remember, there is deformation occurring during the small interval of time, okay, when one body is interacting with another. So these are the points you need to remember, okay, when you begin with the different types of collisions. Okay, now that you have understood what are the different types of collisions, let us look into one-dimensional elastic collisions. Okay, when do we call the collision as one-dimensional? Okay, collision is said to be one-dimensional if the velocity of the two colliding bodies, okay, say I am considering two objects M1 and M2 moving with a speed U1 and U2. If their velocities before collision and after collision lie along the same line, say after collision M1 and M2 started moving with velocities V1 and V2. So if the two colliding bodies before collision and after collision have their velocities along the same line, then we call it as one-dimensional collision. So now if you look at elastic collision, okay, we have taken one-dimensional elastic collision by using conservation of momentum and kinetic energy. We could find out the velocity of the two particles. Okay, tell me what was the formula we have derived? V1 equals to M1 minus M2 by M1 plus M2 into U1 plus 2M2U2 by M1 plus M2. So this is how we have derived it by using conservation of momentum and kinetic energy. So if you know V1, just interchange 1s and 2s, you will get the value of V2. What will V2 be? In the place of 1, you make it 2. M2 minus M1 by M1 plus M2 into U2 plus 2 M1 U1 divided by M1 plus M2. So these two formulas you need to remember for solving the questions related to collisions. Okay, if you know these formulas, you can directly apply and find out what are their velocities after collision. So this is in case of what type of collision? Elastic collision. Suppose it is inelastic one-dimensional collision. I'll modify these relations so that you get the equations in terms of coefficient of restitution. So if you can remember this relation in terms of coefficient of restitution, for any type of collision you can find V1 and V2 provided you know the value of E. So I'll give you the general formula. For inelastic, V1 is equal to M1 minus EM2 by M1 plus M2 into U1 plus 1 plus E into M2 U2 by M1 plus M2. Similarly, write the equation for V2. Okay, I told you interchanging 1s and 2s, you can get the value of V2. V2 becomes M2 minus E M1 by M1 plus M2 into U2, 1 plus E into M1 U1 by M1 plus M2. So these relations you can remember for determining their final velocities, but only for one dimensional collision. If it is E value is equal to 1, you get elastic. If you put any other value, that will be for inelastic. And when E becomes 0, okay, we know it is perfectly inelastic collision. So in that case, we will get the value of V1 and V2. So here itself, remember one more relation for the kinetic energy lost during the collision. Okay, I derive a general formula for what is the kinetic energy lost. So based on that, you can apply it for any kind of collision. So whatever be the one-dimensional collision, the kinetic energy lost is given by half m1 m2 by m1 plus m2 into u1 minus u2 whole square into 1 minus e square. So you can remember this relation. This gives you the kinetic energy lost during collision. So if you put the value of E equal to 1, 1 minus 1 will be 0. That is for elastic collision, there is no energy loss to the surroundings. But for other type of collisions, if you substitute the value of E, you can find out what is the energy loss. And this clearly shows that if the value of E is 0, that is for perfectly inelastic collision, maximum amount of kinetic energy is lost. Sometimes they ask you which type of collision leads to maximum loss of kinetic energy. And for that you can write it as the inelastic, perfectly inelastic collision. So remember these relations, okay, while doing the numericals. Then apart from this, for perfectly elastic collisions, if masses are equal, okay, if m1 becomes equal to m2, what would happen to their velocities after collision? If they are moving with a speed u1 and u2 before collision, after collision, they will start moving with a speed such that v1 is equal to u2 and v2 is equal to u1. Implies the bodies will exchange their velocities if the masses are equal. Say if they are moving with 10 and this is having a speed 5 meter per second, they are approaching each other, okay, u1 is greater than u2. After collision, they interchange their velocities. Apart from this, we have already studied this. Say if a heavy body, if m1 is very heavy and m2 is at rest, if this goes and collides with a lighter body, which is at rest, then what would happen after collision? After collision, m1 continues to move with the same speed. There is no change in the speed of capital M. But this will start moving with a speed double of the previous. So if a heavy body comes and collides with a very lighter body, if the collision is perfectly elastic, in such a case, m1 continues to move, whereas m2 will move with a speed double of the previous or double the speed of capital M. Now reverse. Okay, what would happen in this case? If a lighter body comes and collides with a heavier body at rest. Okay, I'll take the first object is very light. It is moving with a speed u1 and this one is initially at rest. And if the collision is perfectly elastic, after collision, the first body, the smaller one, will collide and go back with the same speed in opposite direction, whereas m2 or capital M remains in the state of rest. So these conditions, if you remember, you don't have to solve it by using these equations. Okay, logically you can answer the questions. So these are the important formulas that you need to remember, okay, in case of one-dimensional collision. Okay, now coming to coefficient of restitution and formulas related to coefficient of restitution. How do we define the coefficient of restitution? It is the relative velocity of separation by relative velocity of approach, but this should be taken along the line of impact or along the common normal. Okay, so we'll come back to this definition later. For one dimension, all the velocities are in the same direction, so coefficient of restitution is v2 minus v1 by u1 minus u2. Now using this, you apply it for a ball released from a certain height. Okay, so these type of questions are very often asked. Say from a height h, you are releasing a ball, it comes and hits the ground with a speed u. And after colliding with the ground, let the coefficient of restitution between the ground and the ball be represented as small e, and it is an inelastic collision. So some of the energy is lost to the surroundings. with the remaining energy it is going to raise up. So after the first collision I call the velocity as v1 and it is raising to a height h1. Okay, again it will come and collide. Okay, with a speed v1. Whatever speed it is raising up, we know it comes and hits the ground with the same speed in the absence of frictional force. Now here it is losing some energy. Again it is raising to a height h2. This continues. Then for this type of question, okay, very often they ask you, how do we determine velocity after nth collision? If the speed with which it is hitting the ground is u, the speed of the ball after nth collision, okay, I am not showing you the derivation here, is equal to e to the power n into u. So you want the speed after first collision, the value of n will be equal to 1. After second collision, n will be equal to 2. Similarly, the height to which body raises after nth collision, okay, a ball is released from a height h, its height after nth collision is e to the power 2n into h, okay, where 2 into n is the number of collision. So you want to find the height after fifth collision, 5 into 2, e to the power 10 into h. Then here itself they ask you what is the total distance travelled before coming to rest. So you are releasing it from a height h. It is raising to h1, falling back, h1, h2 and h2, h3 and h3. If you keep on adding it up to infinity, okay, this is obtained by geometric progression. So we have already derived it. So remember the relation, the total distance travelled. Okay, how to get the total distance travelled equal to h into 1 plus e square by 1 minus e square. So this formula gives me the total distance the ball is going to travel before coming to rest or after infinite collisions. Similarly, velocity after nth collision. Okay, so the speed after n collisions. Okay, we have already written it as e to the power n into u. So time taken. Okay, in what time it is going to come to rest? Total time interval before stopping will be under root 2h by g into 1 plus e divided by 1 minus e. Okay, as I told you, I am not showing you the derivations. So remember these formulas for calculating the total distance before coming to rest and the time taken before coming to rest. This is velocity after nth collision and this is your formula for height to which a body rises after nth collision. So these four relations, if you remember, again for solving the numericals it becomes easy. Okay, so now that you have studied about one-dimensional collision, let's look into two-dimensional collisions. Okay, so here we will be dealing with two cases, horizontal and the second one is collision with the floor. Okay, so look at the first case. So for two-dimensional collision, so let us suppose you have a body of mass m2 which is initially at rest. Okay, you can take different cases here. I am taking this condition. This was the NCERT example or NCERT model. This is a line which is passing through the center. Now somewhere here you have m1. It is moving with a speed u1 and this is the line which is passing through its center. So this perpendicular distance we call it as impact parameter. When will there be a collision between these two objects? If I write the impact parameter as p, this distance or radius of this object is r1 and radius of this mass is r2. A collision will occur if p is less than r1 plus r2. If p is greater than r1 plus r2, it will just move without touching. So if p impact parameter is less than r1 plus r2, then there will be a collision between these two. So assume that they are colliding. So the first body is coming and meeting with the second. This is the common tangent and this is the common normal. Okay, a normal which is common to both the objects. So if this is your common normal, a line which is passing through it. This is called impact parameter, sorry, line of impact. Okay, what do you call this common normal as? The line of impact. See, let us suppose after collision, the block M1 or the body M1 has made an angle θ1 and it is moving this side with a speed v1. And M2 also has changed its direction and it started moving with a speed v2. I'll call this angle as theta 2. So theta 1 is the angle through which m1 got scattered. Theta 2 is the angle through which m2 got scattered. So the theta 1 plus theta 2, we call this as angle of divergence. Okay, what name do we give it? Angle of divergence. So here now, how do we apply the conservation of momentum and kinetic energy? If suppose the collision is perfectly elastic, we know momentum and kinetic energy are conserved. So write the conservation of momentum. Since momentum is a vector, I will consider this as my x-axis. Perpendicular to it will be your y-axis. So for x direction, write the equations for conservation of momentum. Total momentum before collision along x-axis. Only m1 was moving. So m1 u1 should be equal to. Resolve this m1 v1 into components. This will be m1 v1 cos theta 1. So here you will get m1 v1 sin theta 1. Similarly, m2 v2 also you resolve. m2 v2 cos theta 2, and this side you will have m2 v2 sin theta 2. So write the conservation along x-axis. m1 u1 should be equal to m1 v1 cos theta 1 plus m2 v2 cos theta 2. Okay, this will be your first equation. Similarly, write the conservation for y direction. For y direction. See, initially there was no momentum along y-axis. After collision, this is moving upward and this is moving downward. If this is plus j, this will be minus j. So 0 is equal to, if you want you can give the directions also, I cap. So before collision there was no momentum along y-axis. m1 v1 is in positive j direction. m1 v1 sin theta 1 j cap minus m2 v2 sin theta 2 j cap. This is your second equation for conservation of momentum. And once you write this, you can also write conservation of kinetic energy, provided it is an elastic collision. Most often they only ask about elastic collision. So if the collision is elastic, half m1 u1 square should be half m1 v1 square plus half m2 v2 square. And here in NCERT we have already proved, okay, you have studied this in subjective. If masses are equal and u2 is 0, that means second object is at rest and they are identical, then we have proved that theta 1 plus theta 2, what will this be equal to? 90 degrees. So remember this, most often they ask you simple numericals related to this. Instead of deriving it and writing the equations, if masses are equal in two-dimensional elastic collision and u2 is 0, then theta 1 plus theta 2 will always be 90 degrees. So this was one case of the two-dimensional collision along horizontal line. Let's look into one more example. Okay, look at the second example of a two-dimensional collision. I will take the objects coming from different directions. So this is m1 moving with a speed u1, and from some other direction you have m2. It is approaching with a speed u2. So they come and collide here. Okay, the collision is a head-on collision. So this is the point of contact, and this will be your line of impact, common normal or the line of impact. So I will assume that taking this as origin, this is my x-axis and here is your y-axis. Okay, so take the angle, let this angle be theta 1. Okay, let us take this angle as theta 1, anything, theta 2, and after collision I will assume that m1 is moving with a speed v1, making an angle theta 1 dash, and m2 is moving this side, making an angle theta 2 dash. Speed is v2. So even this is also an example of a two-dimensional collision, because they do not have the same velocities, they do not have the velocities along the same line. We call it as two-dimensional collision. Now still you can apply conservation of momentum along x and y axis, conservation of kinetic energy, and apply the given conditions, whatever values are provided in the question, and find out the unknown values. So write the equation for conservation of momentum. If I resolve m1 u1 and m2 u2 into components, what is their momentum along x-axis for x direction? m1 u1, okay, if I resolve them, it will be cos theta and sin theta. This angle is theta 1, m1 u1 cos theta 1. This is m1 u1 sin theta 1. So here you have theta 2, m2 u2 cos theta 2, m2 u2 sin theta 2. So their momentums along x-axis before collision. Okay, you can write it as m1 u1 cos theta 1 plus m2 u2 cos theta 2 should be equal to, even these momentums if you resolve into components and write, I am writing it directly, m1 v1 cos theta 1 dash plus m2 v2 cos theta 2 dash. This is for x direction. Similarly, write conservation for y direction. m1 u1, but here be careful. m1 u1 sin theta 1 is acting downward. So m1 u1 sin theta 1 minus j cap plus m2 u2 sin theta 2 plus j cap. Okay, it's acting upward. After collision, both the velocities, okay, so this is cos and sine component. Sine component of this is upward. So it will be equal to m1 v1 sin theta 1 dash j cap. But for this particle, momentum is downward. So use the sign minus m2 v2 cos theta 2 dash j cap. Okay, so along with signs, you have to write the equation for conservation of momentum. And then kinetic energy, if it is elastic collision, I told you, total kinetic energy before collision, it is a scalar quantity, m1 u1 square plus half m2 u2 square should be equal to half m1 v1 square plus half m2 v2 square. So this is how you can write conservation and momentum conservation provided the collision is perfectly elastic. So this is the second example of a two-dimensional collision. Okay, so this is a head-on collision. Previously there was a distance between the two centers. Okay, line passing through the two centers. Now look at the third case. Okay, so it's a collision with the floor. Okay, now come to the third case, collision with the ground. Okay, so this is a two-dimensional collision with the ground. One-dimensional, we have seen what is the height after a collision and so on. Look at two-dimensional. So a body of mass m is moving with a speed u. It is coming and hitting the ground. Okay, so this is the common normal. Okay, this is the common tangent. Perpendicular to this will be your common normal. Okay, what do you call this? Line of impact. And let this angle be theta. Okay, the body is coming and colliding with the ground, making an angle theta with the common normal. If the collision is elastic, okay, just like reflection, this ball will bounce back with the same speed, making same angle. I repeat, if they give you that the collision is elastic, the angle of incidence will be equal to angle of reflection. It will bounce back, making the same angle with the same speed. But if the collision is inelastic, then there will be a coefficient of restitution. Let us take the coefficient of restitution as E. So we know ground is not going to move before and after collision. So what is the speed of the ground before collision? 0. After collision also it is 0. This is the initial speed. Split this into components. If this angle is theta, this will also be theta. U cos theta. Here you have u sin theta. And after collision, let us suppose the ball is going to move with a speed v, making an angle alpha with common normal. So they may ask you determine this value of v or determine the value of alpha. How to get this? Split this into components again. This is alpha, v sin alpha, v cos alpha. So I will write the coefficient of restitution. Okay, how do we define coefficient of restitution? Relative velocity of separation by relative velocity of approach along the common normal. So if I write this equation along the common normal, so it is approaching the ground with what speed? U cos theta. Getting separated with what speed? V cos alpha. I'm sorry, this is alpha. So write the coefficient of restitution. Relative velocity of separation along this line is V cos alpha, but it is approaching the ground with a speed U cos theta. So this is your first equation. So what can we write V cos alpha as? V cos alpha is equal to E into U cos theta. Call this as equation 1. Come to horizontal component of velocities. Since there is no force acting along this line, along the tangent, these two speeds are not going to change. What is U sin theta equal to? U sin theta will be V sin alpha. Call this as equation 2. Now from these two relations, you can determine the value of alpha. You can also determine the value of V. Say when I divide these two, okay, I write it V sin alpha is equal to U sin theta. Call this as 1 and 2. I have just reversed it. Now divide both of them. What will happen when you divide 1 and 2? Equation 2 divided by equation 1. V sin alpha by V cos alpha. Tan alpha should be equal to sin theta by cos theta. So 1 by E into tan theta. So where E gives you the coefficient of, or where E is the coefficient of restitution. So if E is 1, okay, just now I told you, if E is 1, tan alpha becomes equal to tan theta. With whatever speed you have projected, it will bounce with the same speed, making the same angle. Now squaring and adding these two relations, what will you get? V square as cos square theta plus sin square theta is anyway 1. Square then U square sin square theta plus E square U square cos square theta, or V square is equal to U square into sin square theta plus E square cos square theta, implies V is U under root sin square theta plus E square cos square theta. See, did we get the value of velocity? So this gives you the velocity and this gives you the angle at which it is going to get reflected, or it is going to be scattered with respect to normal. So based on this also you may get some simple applications, formula based applications for collision with the ground. So this is all about the two-dimensional collisions. So if you know till here for NEET, that is sufficient.